What do you do when three boys target you just for staying silent? Jasmine had an answer they didn't see coming. They say high school is all about finding your people, but Jasmine Cole wasn't looking for that. Not anymore. She stood outside McKinley High in Topeka, Kansas, with her hands buried deep in the pockets of her jacket, watching clusters of students drift toward the main entrance. Laughter, phones out, backpacks slung over shoulders, it all looked the same, no matter what state she moved to. She'd already been to 4 schools in the last 2 years. Her mom's job had them on the road more than a touring band. This was supposed to be a fresh start, again. But Jasmine had learned not to get too comfortable with that phrase. She adjusted the strap on her bag and walked toward the building. Inside, the halls buzzed with energy. Some kids barely noticed her. Others gave that 1-second glance, clocking the new face before moving on. She didn't mind. Flying under the radar was the goal, until she hit homeroom. Name? The teacher asked, without looking up from her clipboard. Jasmine Cole. The teacher, Mr. Reynolds, it said on the board, nodded. Seats open in the back. She made her way down the row, catching a few sideways stares as she passed. A boy with a buzz cut and AirPods smirked at her as she walked by. Another one, sitting beside him, whispered something to his friend and laughed. Jasmine didn't flinch. She slid into her seat, pulled out a notebook, and stared straight ahead. By second period, whispers had already started. Yo, she moved from Tennessee or something. Nah, I heard Arizona. No, dude, South Carolina. My cousin said her mom's military. That part wasn't true. Her mom worked in property management, not the army. But kids at a new school didn't need facts. They just needed something to say. Jasmine ignored it all, keeping her eyes on the board, writing down every word her teacher said. But during lunch, things shifted. She walked into the cafeteria, tray in hand, scanning for an empty table. That's when she saw them. 3 boys at the corner table. They weren't just loud, they owned the room. The one in the middle had slicked back curls and a long, confident lean in his chair. That was Brent Wallace. Jasmine didn't know his name yet, but everyone else clearly did. The boy on his left, darker skin, wide frame, heavy chain around his neck, kept smacking his hand on the table like he was keeping a beat. Darius King. The one to the right, thinner with sharp eyes and messy hair, Tyler Nash, laughed at whatever Brent was saying. They looked like the type of guys who didn't wait in lines, who never got detention, even though everyone knew they should. Jasmine avoided eye contact and sat down 2 tables over, but she could feel it, that subtle pull of their attention, like sharks catching a splash in the water. She opened her water bottle and took a sip, acting like she hadn't noticed. One of them let out a loud fake cough that sounded suspiciously like the word fresh meat. Laughter followed. Jasmine didn't turn. After lunch, in the hallway outside biology, the 3 of them passed by her again. Brent walked slow, chewing gum with that relaxed arrogance that said, I own this place. New girl walks like she's got security detail, Brent said loudly, not even pretending to keep his voice down. Tyler laughed. Nah, she probably just don't speak broke, Darius added, or maybe she's just shy because she knows she ain't gonna last. Jasmine kept walking. No reaction, no words, no eye contact. She didn't have time for this. She had a goal, finish the semester, pass her exams, keep it moving. But something told her these 3 weren't used to being ignored, and they didn't like it. But just because you ignore a problem doesn't mean it disappears. Sometimes it only grows louder. By the end of the week, Jasmine knew exactly who Brent, Darius, and Tyler were, and more importantly, how the school worked around them. Brent was the ringleader. His dad owned 2 car dealerships in town and had donated money to the school's new gym. Teachers smiled too much around him, let him slide on late work, and acted like his charm was a real personality. He wasn't dumb, he just didn't care unless it made him look good. Darius was all muscle and attitude. He wasn't as smooth as Brent, but he didn't have to be. He backed Brent up, made people nervous, and walked like the hallway belonged to him. If Brent pointed, Darius moved. Tyler, on the other hand, was the mouth, always talking, always watching. He wasn't as strong or tall, but he was fast, with words and fists. The kind of guy who threw the first punch and let Darius finish the job. Together, they were untouchable. Jasmine had seen their kind before. Different names, different faces, but same routine, same game. They weren't interested in her at first. She wasn't flashy, didn't dress to impress. She didn't scroll in class or jump into conversations. She kept her head down, answered questions when asked, and ate alone. That annoyed them, because it made them irrelevant. It started small. A crumpled paper ball tossed her way in fourth period. Darius smirking from across the room. Tyler coughing fake insults under his breath when the teacher turned his back. Brent would wait until the hallway cleared and say something like, "That's a cute notebook. Bet you got poetry in there. Want to read me a love letter?" Jasmine didn't respond. Not with words, not with looks. She just moved, quiet, controlled. But silence doesn't always disarm people. Sometimes it challenges them. After gym class one day, as Jasmine walked past the locker room doors, Brent leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "You always walk like you're on a mission," he said, looking her up and down. "Where are you headed? The library to write about your feelings?" Jasmine didn't stop. "I said something to you," he pressed, stepping forward. She looked at him, calm and steady. "And I didn't." Brent blinked, caught off guard. Darius chuckled from behind. "Yo, she's spicy." Jasmine held Brent's stare for 1 second longer, then turned and walked away. Her steps didn't quicken. She didn't look back. Tyler's voice echoed after her. "Girl thinks she's special 'cause she don't talk. Probably afraid she's going to say something dumb." That night, Jasmine didn't say much to her mom during dinner, just the usual. "How was school?" "Fine." "Anyone bothering you?" "Nope." Her mom didn't press. She was tired from work, bills, deadlines. Rent was higher in Kansas than their last place. Jasmine knew better than to add to her stress. But later, in her room, she stood in front of the mirror, shadowboxing in silence. Her hands moved fast, precise. Footwork sharp. No wasted movement. She'd been training since she was 10. Her grandfather, Pop, had started teaching her when she came to live with him for a while. It wasn't about fighting. It was about discipline, control, respect. Pop used to say, "Just 'cause you can hit someone, don't mean you should. But if they put hands on you first, they chose how this ends." She remembered those words now, let them settle in her chest. At school the next day, she saw the boys again in the courtyard during lunch. They were playing a loud game of two-hand touch football. Brent spotted her and shouted, "Hey, you should come play. You can be the ball." A few people laughed. Not everyone, just enough. She didn't flinch. She opened her book and kept reading. Tyler jogged over near her table. "You too good for people now? You always this rude, or just allergic to fun?" Jasmine turned a page. "See?" Tyler said, loud enough for everyone nearby. "I think she needs a little help loosening up." But Tyler wasn't the real problem. Brent was. And he was already thinking about making his next move. One she wouldn't be able to ignore. It was a Thursday, the kind of day that dragged like gum stuck to your shoe. Everything felt slow, heavy. Even the clock seemed bored. Jasmine sat through algebra with one ear on the lesson and the other tuned to the desk behind her. Darius and Tyler were whispering. Again. Nothing new. But today, their voices were sharper. Less joking, more planning. "Bet she won't do nothing," Darius muttered. "Y'all scared of a girl?" Tyler whispered back, laughing. Brent didn't say much. He just tapped his pen on the desk in a steady rhythm, like he was waiting for the right moment. Jasmine didn't turn around, but she heard every word. She always did. After class, she moved quick, straight to her locker, grab her stuff, keep it moving. But as she turned the corner, she almost bumped into Tyler. "Damn, you walk like you got somewhere to be," he said with a grin. She stepped around him without a word. Brent was leaning against the lockers just a few feet down, arms crossed like always. "You got a real attitude, you know that?" he said, his voice louder than necessary. "We're trying to be friendly. You act like we're diseased." Jasmine didn't respond, but this time Brent stepped in front of her. "Say something," he said, not angry, just pushing. She stared at him. No fear, just silence. A few heads turned down the hall. Brent smirked. "Nah, you're just scared. That's what it is." She looked past him. "Move." "Ooh," Darius teased from behind. She got one word in. Progress. Brent didn't move. He leaned in closer, voice dropping. "If I were you, I'd fix that attitude, before somebody fixes it for you." That's when the warning bell rang. Jasmine stepped to the side and kept walking, but Brent's pride didn't like that, not one bit. That kind of silence, that kind of calm, it burned louder than any insult. And Brent? He wasn't used to losing. Later that afternoon, during sixth period, Jasmine was called to the office. She figured it was a schedule thing. Maybe her counselor needed to talk. But when she got there, she saw Mrs. Pennington, the vice principal, sitting behind the desk with a tight smile. Jasmine, come on in. Just want to check in. See how things are going. Jasmine sat. They're fine. You've been here almost 2 weeks now. Making any friends? No. Mrs. Pennington nodded like she expected that answer. I've had a few comments from students that you've been standoffish, not really engaging. Is everything okay? Jasmine kept her face still. I'm here to learn, that's all. Mrs. Pennington leaned forward, elbows on the desk. Look, I get it. New school, new people, but sometimes how we carry ourselves, especially if we come off as cold, can create tension. Just something to think about. Jasmine wanted to ask, if someone's bothering me, are you going to tell them to change how they carry themselves? But she didn't. She just said, okay. On her way back to class, she passed Brent, Darius, and Tyler walking toward the vending machines. Brent gave her a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Careful, Cole. Admin's got eyes on you now. Jasmine walked past without flinching. Tyler called after her. Hey, you should smile more. Might keep you out of trouble. Darius laughed, deep and mean. That night, Jasmine didn't train. She sat on her bed with her grandfather's old photo beside her, him in his army fatigues, half smiling like he didn't have time for cameras. She missed him. Pop would have told her to stay focused, keep her center, but even he knew, sometimes, the only way to stop a fire is to stomp it out before it spreads. She lay awake for hours, staring at the ceiling, her hands balled into fists without thinking. Tomorrow was Friday, and something told her it wasn't going to end like any normal school day. Because the next time Brent tried to press her, he wouldn't use words, and Jasmine had already decided, if someone put hands on her, they were going to find out who she really was. Friday morning came cold and gray. Clouds hung low over Topeka like a warning. Jasmine woke up early, didn't need an alarm. Her body was already tense, ready. She braided her hair tighter than usual, pulled on her hoodie, and double-knotted her sneakers. No music in her ears today. She wanted to hear everything. She arrived early and went straight to first period, sat in her seat, opened her notebook, waited. Brent didn't show up to that class, neither did Darius, or Tyler. Second period, same thing. By third, the air had changed. It was like the halls were holding their breath. Whispers passed faster than the bell. They're gonna do it today. Somebody said she swung on him already. Nah, he said he's gonna humiliate her in front of everybody. At lunch, Jasmine stood at the vending machine near the east stairwell. It was always quieter there. Fewer people, fewer eyes. Until footsteps echoed behind her. She turned before they spoke. Brent, Darius, Tyler. Brent walked like he had nowhere to be, hands in his pockets, calm. Tyler grinned, bouncing a little on his heels like a kid about to open a gift. Darius just cracked his neck and looked around. You got a minute? Brent asked. Jasmine didn't answer. I've been thinking, he said. You walk around here like you're better than everybody. Never laugh, never talk, never smile. You too good or just too scared? Still nothing. Brent stepped closer. See, I don't think you get how this works yet. This ain't your school. You don't set the rules. You're just a guest. Tyler chuckled. Time to check her real quick. Darius nodded. Just one little tap. She'll learn. Brent tilted his head. So let's make it simple. And then he moved. Fast. Like he thought she wouldn't see it coming. Like he'd done it before. His hand came up, open palm, aiming straight for her cheek. He didn't swing hard, but it wasn't a joke either. But Jasmine? She was faster. She ducked, pivoted, and caught his wrist mid-swing. In one clean motion, she twisted his arm behind his back and shoved him against the vending machine. The metal clanged loud. Gasps erupted behind them. Students had gathered without her noticing, phones out, eyes wide. Yo! Darius shouted, stepping forward. Jasmine turned, her stance low, balanced. She didn't raise her fists, but her body said everything. She was ready, every muscle locked in, steady. Back up, she said. Darius hesitated. His eyes flicked to Brent, who was still pinned and grimacing. Jasmine let go. Brent spun around, face red, his cool shattered. What the hell are you? Jasmine stared him down. You tried to put your hands on me. You made that choice. Now deal with it. He looked at her like he was seeing her for the first time, and he didn't like what he saw. Tyler muttered, Yo, she's crazy. Nah, someone from the crowd said. She's trained. That looked real. More voices chimed in. Did you see that move? She flipped him like nothing. Bro got cooked by the new girl. A security guard finally pushed through the crowd. Everybody back up, right now. Brent tried to speak. She grabbed me first. Security footage will say otherwise, Jasmine cut in, her voice steady. You raised your hand first. Brent opened his mouth again, but closed it just as quick. Darius and Tyler looked uncomfortable for the first time. The guard looked at Jasmine. Come with me. She went without arguing, but she didn't hang her head, because this time she wasn't the one who should feel small, and deep down, everyone watching knew it. The vice principal's office felt different this time. Mrs. Pennington sat stiffly behind her desk, fingers laced together like she was holding herself back. Jasmine sat in the same chair as before, only now her shoulders weren't tense. She sat with purpose. I watched the footage, Mrs. Pennington said after a long pause. It's clear what happened. Jasmine didn't speak. She didn't need to. You defended yourself, Pennington admitted, tapping her pen against a folder. But this school has a zero-tolerance policy for physical contact, even in self-defense. There it was. Jasmine stared at her. So, what should I have done? Let him hit me? No, the woman said quickly. Of course not. But we have protocols. You could have reported it before it got physical. I did report it. To you. Pennington's face twitched. She remembered. Jasmine's last visit, the polite warning about how she carried herself. There was no excuse now. After a beat, she sighed. You won't be suspended. I'm going to file it as a defensive incident, but I am contacting your mother, and Brent will be assigned to in-school suspension. Jasmine nodded once. That's fine. On the walk back to class, she felt eyes on her again, but this time, they weren't sneers or smirks. They were wide, curious, maybe even impressed. At lunch, she sat alone like usual, but she wasn't invisible anymore. A girl from her bio class, Eliana Banks, quiet but sharp, slid into the seat across from her with a tray in hand. You okay? Eliana asked. Jasmine looked at her. Yeah, that was wild. Jasmine shrugged. It shouldn't have had to happen. Eliana nodded slowly. No, it shouldn't. But I'm glad you did what you did. He's been like that since middle school. No one ever stood up to him. Jasmine glanced across the cafeteria. Brent wasn't at his usual table. Darius and Tyler sat alone, heads low. You'd think somebody would have checked him by now, Jasmine said. People tried, Eliana said, but not like you did. You didn't just hit him back. You handled it. Jasmine didn't say anything. Her stomach still had a knot in it. Not fear, not regret, just tiredness. That evening, at home, her mom sat on the edge of Jasmine's bed, holding her phone. They called me today, she said, told me what happened. Jasmine didn't speak. Her mom looked at her, eyes soft but serious. Are you okay? Yeah. A pause. Pop would have been proud, her mom said quietly. Jasmine's throat tightened. He always said, stay calm, but be ready. Her mom smiled a little. He sure did. Jasmine hesitated. You mad? No, her mom said, brushing Jasmine's braid behind her ear. I'm proud. I'm just sorry you had to deal with that. Again. They sat in silence for a moment. Then her mom added, You're not just strong because you know how to fight, Jazz. You're strong because you knew when to fight. Jasmine nodded. She wasn't just protecting herself from a slap. She was protecting her peace. Her right to walk through a school hallway without being targeted. Her right to exist without having to entertain or prove anything to anyone. But the fight wasn't just physical. It was a reminder to everyone watching. Silence doesn't equal weakness. The following week moved differently. Brent came back from in-school suspension quieter than anyone expected. He didn't try to sit at the same table. He didn't bother Jasmine again. In fact, he didn't speak to her at all. Tyler avoided her completely. Every time they crossed paths, he looked somewhere else, suddenly fascinated by the ceiling, the floor, the lockers. Darius walked like he was carrying a weight, like the joke wasn't funny anymore. Jasmine didn't walk taller. She didn't need to. She walked exactly the same, but this time, no one got in her way. Word had spread beyond the school. Someone had posted a blurry clip of the hallway moment. It wasn't the full fight, just enough to see Brent swing and Jasmine move like she'd done it 1,000 times. The caption read, He picked the wrong girl. Thousands of views, hundreds of comments. Some kids whispered about it in class. Others just looked at her differently. But Jasmine stayed the same. At lunch, more students started sitting near her, not close, not in her face, but nearby, like they just wanted to share space with her. Respect doesn't always arrive loud. One day, Eliana sat down again and asked, "You ever teach anyone how to do all that?" Jasmine raised an eyebrow. "You mean fight?" "Yeah," Eliana said. "Or defend yourself. I don't know, just something." Jasmine thought for a second. "I don't teach," she said, "but I could show you some things." By the next week, 5 girls met her after school near the track. She showed them how to hold their stance, how to breathe, where to place their hands, how to block, not just swing. She didn't teach them to hit. She taught them to stand their ground. That's what her grandfather had given her. That's what she was passing on. One afternoon, as they packed up their bags, Eliana said, "You know what the best part is?" "What?" "You didn't even throw a punch, and you still won." Jasmine gave a small smile. Winning doesn't always mean hurting somebody. Sometimes it's just making sure they never try again. She looked at the sky. It was the first time in a long time she didn't feel like running. Not from the school, not from the whispers, not from herself. McKinley High wasn't home, but maybe, just maybe, she didn't need it to be. She had something better now. Self-respect, boundaries, a quiet kind of power. And the understanding that when people expect you to stay silent, your voice, even if it's through action, can be the loudest thing in the room. Because real strength isn't about how hard you hit. It's about how well you hold your ground when it counts. If you've ever been underestimated, ignored, or pushed around, remember this. You don't have to prove your worth to anyone. But if someone crosses the line, you have every right to stand up for yourself. And when you do, stand steady, stand proud, stand smart. Because respect isn't given. It's earned by knowing who you are and refusing to let anyone take that from you. What would you do in Jasmine's shoes? Let us know in the comments. And if you know someone who needs this message, share it.